It doesn't matter. They filmed it in Spain, it's starring Spanish actors, and they're speaking Spanish. I don't see what the problem is. It's got what's called subtitles, which are written in English. You're going to see them on the screen, so every time one of the characters speaks, albeit in Spanish, you're going to read it in English. The film makes perfect sense. The story will unfold, albeit in Spanish, but you'll be able to know what's happening because it's written in English. Easy peasy. Folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man, and young Mr. Kentucky Fudge at your service. We've just been discussing the virtues of foreign films, their artistry, their commercial viability. And we stumbled upon this one from 2011. Lobos de Arga, it was called in its native Spain, but we know it better as Attack of the Werewolves. Yes, it may be a hokey title to you. Well, I think it's a hokey title all around, isn't it really? But it is exactly what it says on the tin. It is about werewolves, multiple werewolves, who attack multiple times. Attack of the Werewolves. It works perfectly. In America, it was known rather derivatively as Game of Werewolves. I wonder where they got that inspiration from. That's a cack house title, that. At least the UK and other territories had a really good working title, which does fit the bill. There is the box for it on its UK Blu-ray release. And it's a nice lenticular cover. I think you'll agree, that's kind of woohoo. Spookamundo. I'm playing the soundtrack to it as well, which was by Sergio More. Now, I may have problems with a lot of the names in this because I reviewed this movie way back when it first came out on Blue and for AV Forums, and I went to town on it as was my wont. I wrote a big massive filmic essay really celebrating it because I think it's a great movie. I really get a big kick out of this. So I studied and researched the director, the stars, the cinematographer, the special effects guys, but that was written down. Many years have passed and I've forgotten almost all of that. I can tell you it's directed by Juan Martino Moreno, and he does a really bang up job. The tagline for the film is Shaun of the Dead meets the Wolfman, and for once one of those big marketing hype lines actually really does sell the story pretty well, because that is what you're getting. You're getting the modernist sense of humour, the bawdy, earthy qualities, the sarcasm, the cynicism, the irony of modern humour from Shaun of the Dead, with the likes of the special effects, the makeup and the gore from, say, The Wolfman, which had only come out, the remake of The Wolfman that is, with Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins only the year before, which was a success. Now, the weird thing is that this film, Attack of the Werewolves, in its home country, Spain, which has a noble history of werewolf movies, notably for Paul Naschy, also known as Jacinto Marina, who had, as the noble werewolf Waldemar Daninsky, had a big, massive series of movies spanning several decades. Big historical period pieces, but him as this noble werewolf. And so they've got this pedigree already, and yet this film, it sank, it went nowhere. And yet amongst Fang and Fair fans all over the world, it is quite justifiably regarded as one of the better movies regarding lycanthropes of recent times. And and there's been a lot, but the notable ones are very few and far between. They're as rare as rocking horse shit, but this is great. Now, I hugely sang its praises when it first came out onto UK home video, and years went by, and I've mentioned it in passing on the channel a few times, and I always said, I'm going to get around to reviewing this. So last night I watched it again for the first time in a long time, and I had an absolute ball with it. It's great. In this review, I'm going to give spoilers, so heads up there. If you haven't seen it, stop watching right now, go and buy it, rent it, stream it, do whatever you need to, but go and get it and then come back to the review, because I am going to drop spoilers, something chronic here. What? No, I'm not going to put subtitles on the spoilers. You're just not getting this. We're speaking English. They're listening in English. They understand English. So, and what the crux of it is, this little rural, isolated village, a Galician village called Arga, has a curse put on it. 100 years prior to the events of the movie, we have a gypsy encampment who've come to town, and we have a marquesa, I think you call it, who the marquis cannot provide her with a child. And she's a bit of a vicious she-bitch herself, but she wants a son. So she has her men go and abduct the gypsy knife thrower, and she straps him to the bed and she rapes him, and his seed does impregnate her. And because she doesn't want word of this getting out, she wants the Marquis to think it's his son, she has all the gypsies executed. But with her dying breath, the gypsy queen issues a curse upon the village and all of its inhabitants, saying that, when the child's born and reaches its 10th birthday, your lives are going to be hell, basically. Because what's going to happen is, on his 10th birthday, this little lad is going to become a towering 8-foot-tall monstrous werewolf who's going to besiege the entire township and just chow down on all the inhabitants. And for 100 years hence, that's going to be the case. Unless the last of the Marques's bloodline can be executed by the werewolf, it'll lift that curse. Okay, so there you go. That's told in a rather beautifully constructed, illustrated title sequence with all the imagery is depicted in great sort of vivid artwork. So we flash forward 100 years, and the town, Arga's most notable inhabitant who's made good for himself, is actually a very failed young author who's struggling to write his second book. His first book didn't get anywhere, but all of a sudden he gets a mysterious invite. He's been living in Madrid, living the good life-ish, to go back to his hometown where he lived until he was about 15 years old or whatever, and go back to the family mansion, and there's going to be a big celebration for him because he's the town lad that done good. So we're going to give you the keys to the village and you're going to be our notable celebrity inhabitant. So he goes back, despite his grandmother saying to him, don't do it, don't go back there, there's nothing for you there, it's a bad place, don't go back. Because he knows nothing about this curse. But off he goes with his little dog Vito, who is this tenacious little terrier who steals virtually every scene that he's in. Is he in? That should have been subtitled, shouldn't it? Every scene that he's in. And they go back to this fabulous mansion. He meets his uncle, who is now the town priest. He's got a dog collar on. But he's only the priest because the previous priest couldn't stand it anymore, up sticks and ran. There's no kids in the village. Why? Because they've sent all the kids away. Once they can, all the kids leave and they just get the safety. It does beg the question, why doesn't everybody else leave as well? But we learn because Thomas, who is the author, who's also a recovering alcoholic. What do you mean, like me? I'm not recovering. I haven't even reached the stage of admitting I'm an alcoholic yet. There's a whole process we've got to go through before I hit that bit. But he meets his childhood friend, Callisto, who is, I don't know the actor's name, but he looks just like the drummer from the band The Killers. So when I see him, I just can't help but think of this guy. And he's funny. He's very funny. Now, the town I've got in there for, well, you can guess, the obvious reason is they've got to sacrifice this lad, Thomas, to the beast. Because that 10-year-old boy, who is now 110, he is locked away in the barn, or rather the catacombs deep beneath this barn. They trapped him long ago, padlocked him in there. So every night, this little lad becomes a ferocious beast, but he can't get out. Now, that barn, Thomas remembers it from his youth, wasn't there a spooky barn around here where we couldn't go near? He said to avoid it, there was a monster in there. And his friend Callisto, who knows the curse, is going, yeah, don't worry about that though. Anyway, the townsfolk get him drunk that night. This is a recovering alcoholic, of course. So in a hangover the next day, he's in a complete reverie. He's got Callisto's there, his dog's there, but got the big celebration tonight. Wow, can't wait. Out of the blue, his publisher from Madrid turns up, who's a bit of A complete and utter ne'er-do-well slacker. Very likeable, charming sort of chap, but a complete buffoon at the same time. And he's obviously on the run from the cops because he's been doing a lot of shady dealing, and he's not the kind of guy you really want to be publishing your novels now and making a name for you. So he holes up there as well. Knockety knock on the door. Oh, it's the night of celebration. Woo, can't wait for this. I'm going to get the keys to the village. Yes, everyone's out for me. They open the door and the entire village is out there. But instead of being rewarded and welcomed, they get punched in the face and drugged and wake up strapped to crucifixes in the barn. Yes, the monster barn. The two of them at either end of a huge trapdoor. And as his uncle, the priest, says, sorry, nothing personal, but we need you to go down there and be fed, because that will release us from the curse. He falls into the trapdoor, into the catacombs beneath, followed by his mate. They encounter the little lad, who is no longer a little lad. He is the towering 8-foot-tall werewolf. But before they get devoured, Callisto, the killer's drummer, and Vito, the little dog, have found the grave out some distance away in the churchyard, and they begin to dig down just in time to haul these two to safety. But the werewolf gets out. Where it's been imprisoned for all these decades, it manages to get out, and then it kills a few people throughout the night. Now that was the one night they had to sacrifice the last of the bloodline to the werewolf to defeat the curse. The next day, whilst hiding away in Callisto's house, Callisto tells them all the story. That's why you were brought here. We've been living under this curse. You know, we locked the beast up, but they wanted to kill you. So why'd you let us go then? Why didn't you just tell us to begin with? Well, I couldn't, I was afraid. But now I've saved you. But the villagers are looking for them. They know it obviously didn't happen because the beast got out and killed a few more people. So they then take Callisto back to the barn and say, look, you go down there because they could be hiding down there. Go and have a look. Callisto then encounters the little lad, the lad who is the werewolf. And with him, he takes him back to the house, and they realise, look, hang on a minute. So this is the werewolf, right? He's got to eat you to alleviate the curse. The villagers, meanwhile, are looking everywhere, turning the place upside down to try and find, the guests in the town. And see, like, there's going to be a curfew at 7:30. We're all going to meet in the local pub, and then we're going to organise and we're going to go out and search again. But they realise, well, hang on a minute. This werewolf's got to eat you. But where's it written he's got to eat all of you? A finger. Let's just use a finger. So his two mates, the publisher and Callisto, push him over, get him drunk, hack off a little finger, cook it up with garlic and spices, and try and feed it to this little wolf brat, who's just a little 10-year-old lad with shaggy long hair, very feral looking. And but that little dog Vito runs off with the finger, chews it all to bits. Shit. You've got 9 more. Come here! And they get him again. They hack another little finger off, and they feed it to the lad. And they're like, well, that's got to have done it. Well, we still got to get out of here. So at sunset, they try and leg it down to the old disused train station, because there's a path behind it which will lead to the next village, and we've got to get out of here. But as they get there, they turn around, and there's the entire village, like a mob of yore, with pitchforks and torches and all sorts, like shotguns. And they say, like, we know it didn't happen. You're alive. It hasn't eaten you. The werewolf got out last night and it killed more people, so the curse has not been lifted. So they put the guns on them. Said, no, this is the werewolf here. It's eaten a finger. Everyone's going to be okay. Well, we know it's not okay because the werewolf still managed to kill people last night. Oh, that'll be because of the secondary curse. Huh? The secondary curse? There's another curse? Because it's great. It has this little sort of a little get out clause. It literally clause. If they don't manage to alleviate that curse that night, 100 years hence from the curse being put upon them, an even greater curse will befall the village. What might that be? Look, he's not going to turn into a werewolf. We fed him a finger off Thomas, so it's going to be all right. Well, okay, we'll just wait till the sun goes down. The sun goes down. Right, well, no one's turned into a werewolf. The little lad stays human. See, the curse has been lifted. What about that second curse, I hear you ask? Sun goes down. They all level the guns on him. Well, we're just going to kill you anyway. Next thing you know, the entire mob start contorting, changing, transforming into these brilliant 8 foot tall, all shaggy, massively red-eyed, massive fanged, muscle-bound, silver grey werewolves. That was the second curse. If you don't manage to kill off the first curse in time, you're all going to become werewolves. And the rest of the film is chase, siege. The grandmother comes to town trying to, I knew something was wrong. And she starts in the car, she saves the day, ploughing through the pack of werewolves, gets our heroes, our hapless heroes, into the car. They hole up in the mansion, Thomas's ancestral mansion. Don't forget, he's missing two little fingers, so his hands are all bandaged. They've got the little lad as well. They've got the grandmother, Thomas, and the publisher, and Callisto. Shotgun, knives, why are you using a stake? That's for vampires. Well, last I looked, we hadn't got any silver bullets, so I can still shove it through them, can't I? 2 hapless cops arrive in town as well, one of which gets devoured, the other in a great little moment of pure precautionary slapstick. Right, first rule of defeating the enemy, do what they don't expect, and the werewolf pack's descending on him, so he just gets out his gun. Didn't expect that, did you? But what he's done, he's only blown part of his scalp off, so he returns to try and save the day. Cue many battles with the werewolves, who have a habit of leaping through church windows, because he moved from the mansion house to the church as well, and then the catacombs beneath the church, which link up to the catacombs beneath that monster barn. The old dynamite from the Civil War is down there as well. A last stand will be made. It's glorious, giddy, gory fun. The werewolves look spectacular. The only downside to the werewolves is that there's so many of them. When the little lad is first transformed again, and he goes on the rampage through the town, he looks, on his own, he looks incredible. The makeup design is clearly derived from the Benicio del Toro Wolfman, but more akin to Anthony Hopkins, who plays his dad in the Wolfman, who's also a werewolf, and a much older one, when he turns into a muscle-bound brute with sort of grey hair. That's the look that all these werewolves are sporting. And I'd say, although they look great, the only downside is that you see them all the time, usually in a mob mass of them, and they all look the same. There's no individuality. They all look exactly the same. A little old woman who's transformed into is still going to be an 8 foot tall, grey, red-eyed, big fanged monstrosity. They all have the same individual face. So that's about the one thing. But then again, they all look great. There's heads coming off. There's arms coming off. We've already mentioned fingers coming off. And the sense of humour is ripe. It's proper earthy, rude humour. And some of it is a bit on the snout, as it were. I mean, the hacking off of the fingers, and poor Thomas, they're getting him drunk first, and he's going, well, why not take something else? Why not take the... Well, you can imagine where we're going to go with that. A little bit of salt on it, and all this. And he's skitting his mate, Callisto. Oh, yeah, remember Callisto? When we were kids, and you were a bit horny, and you went out into the field, and you took a fancy to that sheep, and he's going, don't tell this story, don't tell it. Yeah, and then you did what you did with it, and then the sheep got pregnant, and you thought it was yours. You thought it was going to be a little mutant sheep, a little Callisto mutant sheep. And then you hear noises upstairs in the attic of the mansion house. This is during the first siege. So Thomas and Callisto go up there, and they're going, and the thing about it is that even though there's a broad comedy in it, the suspense and the tension is really palpable. And that's what I love about it. The success of the humour, the success of the horror elements. Not just gory and violent, it is scary as well. You do get a bit of, the prickles on the back of your neck. It works. So as they ascend these stairs going to the attic, he's going, you know what's up there, don't you, Callisto? And he's going, no, shut up. You know, it's he's like, oh, it's a were-sheep. And it's such stupidity in the face of what could be, and in fact is, tremendous danger. Because when they open the door to the attic and peer in, what they discover there is lots of these werewolves dropping in through a hole in the ceiling and all gathering together. And it's like, shut the door. And you're like, it's pure Scooby-Doo. But in the way that Scooby-Doo works as well, at its best, it's funny. We know it's cozy and harmless, and yet you still get a bit of a shiver, a bit of a frisson of suspense and thrills, and you definitely get that in spades with this. The humour, the characters, the dialogue is earthy, witty, sarcastic, caustic. The slapstick is sometimes a little bit farcical, but it doesn't matter. The way that Moreno directs this movie, he hits the target far more often than he misses it. When Tomas and his publisher get dropped into the catacombs beneath the barn, Tomas goes down there first, and I've watched it several times, this sequence, since last night and before this review, and it makes me laugh out loud every time. It's just directorial and visual genius. It's obvious, but it works every time. Tomas gets dropped in first, and the camera just stays completely static, and he gets up from the shadows, and he's like, hey! And straight away his buddy's body lands on him. Whoa! And it's just, it might not sound funny right now with me describing it, but when you watch it, it's belly laugh time. I love it. And there are many moments like that. The characterization is sharp, and you like them, you understand them. The dog, as I say, Vito, steals every single scene. You have werewolves on top of the grandmother's car. They're getting blown away with shotguns, but one is going to reach in and take Vito, and they're going to slam the brakes on, and the dog's going to go flying into the air. They're going to roll over this werewolf, and then Tomas leans out, and the dog lands in his hands. It's pure Tex Avery, Hanna-Barbera stuff, and it works. It works a treat. The effects, as I say, are really good. The werewolf makeup is spectacular. The only thing is that I'd like a bit more variation on it, and perhaps with the relentless battles you have in the final act of the movie, a lot more invention in the killings of the werewolves, because they just tend to stand there and then advance en masse, shotgun blast, and they'll go flying back 40 feet. They'll do that thing from Mike Leigh's Wolf with Jack Nicholson, where the wolves seem to have the ability to jump 60, 70 feet through the air. So they'll be flying through the air like that, and then boom, shotgun blast, and they'll go flying backwards again. So you got plenty of that. But seeing them smash their way through stained glass windows and stand there hulking in advance, it still is a startlingly great, vivid image of lycanthropy gone wild. And I have a great time with it, honest to God. The music, which you're hearing now, is great. There's a lot of eeriness, there's a lot of playfulness. I'm going to play for you now the actual title track. Very percussive, and that piano, it's jaunty but sadistic at the same time. The film also stems from the fact that pretty much in every Western country, we have a fear and hostility towards our rural cousins. The question could be asked, the town inhabitants send their kids away to avoid the plague and the danger there. Why don't they all go? Why don't they all up sticks and just move somewhere else? Perhaps the curse would still follow them, but the curse is locked into this little 10-year-old lad who becomes a towering werewolf. What happens to the lad, you may ask? Well, at the end, when they finally defeated all the werewolves and the little lad is lying there, he ages in one of the rare moments of actual CG, because most of it's prosthetic effects, but in a rare moment of CG effects trickery, he becomes an old man and then will die. But that's actually pretty good. But you're thinking, where's the budget going to go? You've already spent a lot on this fabulous location, which is lovely. This little Galician village. which is a great setting. The barn, the church, the actual town itself, the fields, they're wonderful to behold. But you think, and all of the lots of muscle-bound rubber monster suits with the great facial prosthetics as well. The budget's gone on all of that. But no, they managed to save up some for this great morphing effect as he ages from a 10-year-old to a 110-year-old. And it's great, and then dies, obviously. There's a twist conclusion to it, which is a bit daft, but I still like it. They have to work out why Callisto didn't transform, and Callisto, this is the childhood friend, he didn't transform because he wasn't born in the village. Oh, that'll be why the curse is still got it. They can't just leave because they're still going to become werewolves wherever they get. Well, whatever. Not that they even know that at the time, but that would have been great, wouldn't it? You could even have a sequel. One of them did leave. Anyway, I don't know. But Callisto was actually conceived and born outside the village, so he's not actually a villager. So he gets away with it. But when they go back after the first confrontation with the massive mob, and they're like, well, why didn't you turn into a werewolf? And he goes, he drops a shotgun and begins to writhe and contort and lie on the floor. And I'm just going like, you're just fucking with us now, aren't you? Yeah. I'm just playing a joke on you. It works. There's only a couple of instances where the joke may be lost in translation. It's funny to them, but it's not funny to us. But it's few and far between. Most of the humour really worked, and it's a combination of slapstick and slapstick visual gags and dialogue. Rich, earthy, funny dialogue, character confrontations, visual slights, and it's lovely stuff. It really is. It works, and you've got an army of werewolves as well. So, I mean, there is a socio-political slant to it, as there is in a lot of Spanish horror movies. But it's not po-faced. It's just, look, we know about the distrust of the rural enclave and the seeds of the Civil War and all that. We know about all this, and we're going to draw upon that, and we're going to draw upon the traditions and the superstitions of old Spain. And old Spain's very similar to old Europe. The whole thing about the werewolves being prevalent throughout the Middle and the Dark Ages, they still speak of it now, because like the witch hunts, the werewolf hunts were huge right the way across Europe. Many thousands were put to the flame or executed in other ways, and so it's part of their history. And it does get referenced by the two dickhead coppers. Although one of those coppers, the one who actually shoots himself in the head, he's actually quite clued up, and he will do a lot to try and save the day. He becomes a great hero in it, in fact. I don't know how you explain it all at the end, because there's just lots and lots of bodies all over the place. How the hell would you explain this? But it's great good fun. There's a sequence where the young lad as a werewolf goes on his rampage after being freed from the barn and the catacombs beneath, and he goes to the pub, and the old couple who run the pub, they hear noises downstairs, so the old guy goes down there, the shotgun. But of course, when the werewolf rears up, he goes click, click on the shotgun, and his wife upstairs is going like, you forgot the cartridges! And he's like, head gets taken off, and then you get this great sequence where the old lady's looking down the stairs, from the bedroom, looking down the flight of stairs, and it's coming up the stairs. Now, I got this thing about werewolves at the foot of the stairs and coming up, and it stems from something else I saw when I was a kid a long time ago. A TV episode in a short-lived supernatural British TV show called Supernatural, and there was one called The Werewolf Reunion, and well, I may come on to that, but it stayed in there. So that sequence of a werewolf turning the corner and coming up the stairs slowly, and she sees it, oh my god, it's carrying his head, her husband's head. It really works. I say the performances are great, the humour is spot on, the gore, it's not OTT, but there is plenty of it. In a nice bit of poetic justification, the publisher, when they think they're pulling Tomas up out of the grave at the end to save the day after blowing everything sky high with all this old Civil War dynamite, killing all the werewolves. But there's still a werewolf there. He's leaning down trying to pull his friend up, but his arm gets severed because it's a werewolf coming up. So his mate lost 2 little pinkies, he lost his arm. Sorry, I'm not infectious, don't worry. But Attack of the Werewolves, folks. It gets 2 great big thumbs up. I can't do the little fingers because they get chopped off. But it's horror humour at its best. Scary, suspenseful, and yet totally tongue-in-cheek, off the rails, and just great good fun. A right old entertaining fun ride. Gotta recommend it. So please do seek some foreign filmmaking and go and have some fun. I have been and always shall be Kilt-Man. He will always be Kentucky Fudge, and we will always be here. Folks, please do keep it kilted, keep it Celtic, and we're going to see you all laters. Fair and fangs and fun. Conquerong. Kangaroo when the button doesn't work again. Gotta change his equipment, you know, it's just not doing the job these days.